and welcome to another one of my little informal studio drop-in sessions. Today is a little bit of an experiment because one of the things that frustrated me about the little session that I did earlier this week was that I was painting and I could show the painting, but I couldn't show what was happening on the palette at the same time. In the videos that I make, the videos that I shoot and then edit afterwards, it's easy for me to do that. But on a live stream, I couldn't have two camera feeds at the same time. Well, I think I've just figured out a way to do it. Hang on a minute, I'm going to check. Yeah, it does appear to be working. So this camera isn't on at the moment. There's a camera here, obviously, that I'm talking to. And what I've got here, probably very inadvisable, but I've got my laptop set up on an easel. And that's where the feed that's down here on my palette is coming from. Look. Hello. The unfortunate thing is, for me, it means that I can't see what I'm sending out as I'm doing it. I can't, so it's going to be really difficult for me to see if you comment, but please do anyway if you have any questions. It just means that I've got to kind of do some contortioned kind of moves to see what's going on the thing, but I'll try and remember to do it every now and again. All right, so it's time for a bit of honesty today. Today's a difficult day for me. I almost didn't make it to the easel today. I couldn't really tell you why. It just happens sometimes. One of those days when I got up and well, it's just a tough day. So I'm going to paint some today on this little apple painting that I'm working on this week. And so I was saying, now I've got this set up like this, I can show you, I can explain a little bit what I'm doing with the colours and mixing as I go. And I can talk about why I'm doing what I'm doing. And if you've got any questions specifically about colour as I'm working, please feel free to ask them in the chat. And as I say, I'll try and remember every now and again to flick over. I'm going to switch over to this camera now for the main feed so that you can see the painting I'm working on. And also, I could really do with getting off the camera this morning because I'm not really feeling all that confident today. Let me just have a quick look and see if anybody's watching. Yeah, hi Med. Hopefully I've just explained to you what I'm up to today. Judy's here as well. Judy, really nice to see you. I just noticed you missed out on the auction of yesterday's painting. Sorry about that. I think you got sniped at the end. But thanks so much for bidding on it. Hopefully some of the stuff that I talk about will be very relevant for you as well, having been on the colour workshop. Listen, I'm struggling a bit today, so I'm just going to get straight down to it, okay? This painting, I thought it was finished. Yesterday, I took a photo of it, and I went through all the stuff that I do to prepare it for posting on the blog and putting up for auction and all of that kind of stuff that I usually do with my little paintings. I'd even signed it. You can see I've signed it here. And I sat back and I looked at the photo and I thought, you know what, I just can't let this one go like this. I'm not happy. And maybe it's just me, you know, but there's something about the way the paint has gone down that I'm not happy with. It just looks a little bit too scrappy. All of this area around the leaves, I like how it's all working compositionally, but it's just, and you know, when you stand well back from the painting, it works well. But I just, maybe it's insecurity, I don't know, you know, who knows what goes through our heads about our paintings, but I thought I can't let this one go, I want to do a little bit more on it. So I thought, well, although it's not a strong day for me today, it's one of the things that I think is really important. If you're gonna try and make a go of being involved in art full time, I think probably the most important thing is every day is just to show up, you know, just to make sure that that you're there, even if you don't feel up to it, because quite often I often find that once I start, that things will go all right. So I'm going to try and sort out the problems, the bits that are annoying me. It's mostly the way that I've painted this whole area here. I'm not entirely sure what's wrong with it, but there's bits showing through that I don't want to show through. There's parts where the form isn't clear. It's just not living for me. This edge here of the top of the apple, I'm just not happy with. It's too sharp. It's not, you know, this apple isn't sitting properly behind this one. This one hasn't come out too bad, although there's a bit of value work I want to do with this one too. Specifically, I want to lighten this area here, and I want to knock this bit back. And you know, yesterday was a difficult day for me painting, and I think when that happens, sometimes for me anyway, I mean, you can tell me if it ever happens for you. Feel free to email me if you don't want to share it publicly. But quite often I find that I don't paint so well, you know, is that my mind isn't, I don't know how to explain it, just not focused. And I'm not happy with the stuff that I did yesterday. So I'm going to go through quickly what I've got on my palette here, which is pretty much what I've had throughout the whole painting. Now, maybe the first thing to say is that I don't set up the same palette every time. I know a lot of people do that. I find it hard to understand why, because I put out what tube paints I think I'm going to need based on what I'm painting. So you should be able to hopefully see all of the colours of this painting kind of within the palette here. Generally speaking, I'm going to go through and I'll tell you what I've got on here and why it's there. Generally speaking, I use two whites. This is titanium white, and this is flake white. This is Michael Harding, titanium white, and this is from Rublev, Natural Pigments, George O'Hanlon, flake white number 2. Now, there are a few reasons why I've got both of these. Hang on a minute, I'm just going to move my cup of tea because I've realised it's putting a part of my palette in shadow. I have titanium white out because it's very powerful in mixes. It goes to a slightly higher value than flake white does, and it's also more neutral, tending towards blue in hue. So this is mostly for using in mixes. Now, I know people talk about the chalkiness of titanium, and they say the best way to avoid that chalkiness is not to use titanium and to use flake. And I think that's a good way to deal with that. It will sort it out. But it's also good to understand why. And the reason is what most people call chalkiness is low chroma. And if you're mixing, particularly if you're trying to get a yellow which is above the value of cadmium yellow, which I've got here, you have to add some white, right? And if you add titanium, it will drop the chroma more because it's more opaque and because the hue is slightly towards blue than if you used flake white, because flake white is more transparent and the hue is slightly more towards yellow. You could say, if you wanted to, although I try and avoid these words, that's a cool white and that's a warm white. You could say that if you were so inclined. I'm not going to argue, but I try not to use those terms. So that's why I've got those two, and also because there are parts of this painting I could only have done with flake white. There's a couple of little touches, they're only little bits, here and here, where on the subject, I don't think you can actually see it, but on the subject, that the wood is slightly splayed there and it stands out. It turns slightly towards the light, which means that more light is hitting it. And I've used flake for that because I can get these kind of little bits of paint on the end of the brush, and they'll just sit and they'll keep their shape when they sit down there, and it gives this almost kind of three-dimensional quality to the paint, and with one little touch I can create that effect. You know, I used flake white quite a bit in the painting of the apple around here as well, mostly for the paint handling. And then I'll also use it for little detail bits. You'll see me use it a little bit when I'm on the leaf. Very thin lines. You can pick flake white up and make what they call ropes with it, and then you can literally lift those up and you can lay them down onto the surface of the painting. So that's why I've got my two whites. Obviously I'm going to need a yellow, cadmium yellow. I've got permanent orange here because it's a very high chroma orange. So between these two, mixing from one to the other, I can get right up at the top end of the chroma range from orange to yellow, which I'm going to want to be for this area of the apple here. Yellow ochre is there because there are parts of the apple where I still want to be in the yellow part of the hue area, but I want to drop the chroma. So yellow ochre is going to be useful for that. I've got, this is Bright Green Lake from Michael Harding. It's just a really high chroma green, which is also going to be really useful. I'll use that on the leaves because I'm going to want some, I've just realised I've got a colour missing, which I'll put on in a minute, but I'm going to want some chroma up in the higher values of the leaves. And the only way I'm going to be able to get that, like much higher value than this, is with a fairly high chroma green. Let me, I'm just going to put on the other colour that I forgot to put out. And it's sap green, here it is. And this is for when I want a low chroma. A low value green still with some chroma. This is a very blue green. It's called sap green, but I will need to add quite a lot of yellow to it to swing the hue. Now I've got quinacridone rose here. I could put out a cadmium red or cadmium red deep. I tend not to use the cad reds anymore because I find that with these three, cadmium yellow, permanent orange and quinacridone rose, I can get very high chroma, as much as I need, right across from the hue circle from red to yellow. And I can get something very closely approaching a cadmium red just with these two, if not beating it on chroma. Burnt sienna, which I've got because parts of the shadows I'm going to want as much chroma as I can at a low value in the like these areas around here. Raw umber is just like, this is one of the few colours I always have out. Raw umber, I just use so much of this, it just seems like such a useful colour to me. It's a low chroma, low value yellow. I've got burnt umber, which I will generally use like in these areas down here because it gives me more chroma at a very low value. So that's useful for the shadows, and black when I want to get right as far down as I can. So that's what I've got out here. I'm just going to have a quick, oh wow, loads of people have joined. You're all getting to see my, my little experiment today. Does it seem to be working for you all right? Can you just tell me if you can hear me okay? Firstly, I'd be interested in knowing. And also if you can see both the camera, both the painting and the palette, that would be really good for me to know. Let me just, I just want to check that the light's changing a lot today, and once I've set it up on the camera, there's not, it doesn't react to the light, you know. I think it's gone a little bit light. So I'm just sorry, just give me a second while I sort out this. I'll probably do it the wrong way first. Yeah, I always do. I think that's better. It's hard for me to see because I'm semi-upside down, of course, looking at my laptop. I think that's a little bit better. Med says everything is fine. Thanks, Med. Thanks very much. That's really useful to know. If you can see both the palette and the painting, that's a big success for me. So I was talking earlier on about, just getting to the easel even on difficult days. And the next most difficult thing is like, where do you start? And for me, when I'm having a tough day, I'll almost always go straight into colour mixing because it just gets my mind moving and it gets my hands moving and it gets me started. So I'm going to, these colours here are around here on the painting. These are Munsell chips. I won't go into that in too much detail today, but so I'm going to try and mix something which is closer to this one right now. So I know that, I mean, I'll take you through just quickly how I've started with something which is close, but it's too high value, right? It's lighter, hopefully you can see that. And it's also higher chroma, so if I want to bring the chroma down, I want to bring the value down. I'll usually use a lower chroma colour to do that, and of the same hue area. Raw umber. A lot of people don't know this. Raw umber is yellow. It's a yellow orange. So I can bring it down really quickly like that. Just with the slightest touch. Just to come down maybe a little bit further. Now it doesn't mean, because I've got this, I'm going to mix a bit more of this, because I've got this colour mixed up doesn't mean that I'm going to be tied to it. It's like a starting point, and I can move in any direction I like from here, but I know that I'm starting in pretty much the right place. That's almost exactly right. It's slightly too yellow and will want to be a little bit warmer, but I can easily modulate that if I want to as I go along. So just to show you really quickly where this colour would go, it's about here, you know. The one that I've got here on the palette is slightly lower chroma. But just to show you really quickly how I would go about modulating this if I decide I need to, because obviously across this area of the apple the colour does change, and if I want to show the form I do need to change the colour. I'm going to bring it, make it a little bit warmer. I'm going to bring some more yellow in, which is going to bring up the chroma, which chroma goes up as you move towards the light, and it'll also raise the value. I'm going to bring in a little bit of flake white, which will also raise the value without losing too much chroma. This is a good example of where I'd use a bit of flake white instead of titanium. Titanium would bring the value up, but it would probably drop the chroma a bit more. And that'll give me a colour which is going to sit really nicely about over this side. And this area here where the oranges are, I know is a bit that I want to bring. I want to bring the value up a little bit to help with turning the form. So that's like, really quickly shows you how I'm using a colour I've judged, and the way I found these colours here was by holding them up like this, parallel to my painting surface, and scanning across the front of the painting until I've found a close match with the Munsell chips. And it's very useful, especially if you have your palette like I have at the moment down here, with different light on it than the painting surface. Because the colours look very different on the palette than they do when you put them up there. Excuse me, this is a great way to translate them. Right. But that's not really the bit that's bothering me. The bit that's bothering me today is... actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that bit there. And it's going to be somewhere between these colours here and this colour here as the colour moves round. I'm going to mix up this colour, which is actually like, you know, it's probably about here. I don't know if I can get that right. Obviously I'm just guessing because I can't see what you see. But I'm going to mix up that colour quickly. Again, I'll take you just through that quickly. I've started with something I know is close, permanent orange. The chroma is a bit high, the value is about right, but it wants to be a bit more red. So if I take some quinacridone rose, if I bring it up to the right value with white, so it's at the same value. This method is called bracketing, and it gives you incredible control over your colour. dark still, yeah, a little bit. But it's lower chroma, because as I bring this value up of the red, the chroma drops. Even though I'm using fleck, the chroma's still going to drop. So I've got something here that now, I don't know how clearly you can see that on the palette, it's quite small, but it's the same value as this and as that, but it's more red and it's lower chroma. So if I take a little bit of that and I bring some of this into it, I'm swinging the hue around and I'm also dropping the chroma. And what I will sometimes do, trade secret, Judy, hope you're still watching, get this one here right, I often try and exceed the colours that I've judged in chroma, because I often find that I want to punch them up a little bit, and it's much easier to drop chroma than it is to increase it. So I'm in the right hue area, I'm in the right value, but my chroma is slightly higher, so I'm pretty happy. I'm going to need more yellow today. Another thing that's bothering me about this painting is that I don't know why it happened, but the painting and the paint ended up on the apple itself fairly thinly. It's fairly thin. And what I'm doing here is I'm making something that's kind of in between these two, because I know I want to move from one to the other, but this is a long way from that. And I would probably lose chroma if I mix straight between them, so I'll get something that's somewhere in between them. Oh, probably because I'm on camera today, I also forgot to put my medium out. This is what I'm mostly using at the moment. Love it to bits. Only put out a little bit. Don't need much. Another little tip. In here I've got terps. If you're going to use this stuff, wipe off the bottle every time you do it, because it goes really, really tacky really fast, and you'll find you won't be able to get the top off your bottle. Judy, I just read your comment. It was 2 a.m. and you were sitting in a car park. Oh, you are now. It was 2 a.m. Now you're sitting in a car park in Dubai. Wow. You see, this is just amazing. This is really amazing to me. I'm sorry if I'm not really on it today and I'm a little bit slow. Hopefully I'm really just painting, and I'm just inviting you in to watch me paint. I'm not doing any great kind of a teaching thing today. But I'm going to put a little bit of terps in that just to thin it down a little bit. But, you know, it's pretty amazing really that I can be sitting here on a Thursday lunchtime at my easel. And there you are, Judy, in Dubai, watching me presumably on your phone, which is pretty incredible. I love this stuff. This is why I'm always playing around with cameras and trying to make these things work better, and to get more information across, because the potential is amazing, really, for what you can do. Now I know I want something in between these two. I'm looking at this area around here, and I know I want the value to come up, because it's a bit too low, and I want to bring a bit more form in. Now sometimes when I'm painting, I'll mix very careful strings. And I did do that earlier on in this painting. But at the moment, I'm using the chips to make sure I'm in the right area so I don't mess anything up. But I guess you could say I'm mixing a little bit, perhaps a little bit more loosely, because, you know, so much of the painting is established. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit of this on my thumb, tiny bit, wipe it off. There's almost none on there, you know. And I'm going to rub a little bit on there, because I want it to sit well, and I want it to integrate with what I've got. Otherwise, if I wanted to keep wet edges and smooth transitions, I'd have to repaint the entire thing, and I don't want to have to do that. That's probably too light. So I've got really here a mini value scale from light to slightly darker, so I can kind of modulate it. Yeah, that's looking nice. I think already, to me, I can begin to see that part of the apple, the form is starting to work a bit better. Yeah. Let's bring it out. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of different ways of doing this, but I want to smooth that out, so I've got a smooth transition, and because I put a bit of medium on and it's slightly slick, I can just wipe it out. A little bit above the highlight too. It's just going to help the form be a bit stronger there, I think. It just didn't seem quite right to me. And then I get with another brush, I can get some of my yellow. And this is slightly higher value than this bit here. So I need this transition across here of the hue, but I want the value to stay high there. So actually, let's bring a bit of... The thing is, describing form is so... The changes are so subtle. I think this is a lot of what I find so useful about using Munsell is that it really helps me to be more subtle. I've got a difficult transition here, which isn't really working. Let's see if we can... So I'm going to try and bring in some of the... That's nice. Take that transition back, but also bring in a little bit of the texture as well. But a lot of it, getting something to look real in a painting. I think a lot of the time people think it's detail, and I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. If your values aren't right and your colour is off, it doesn't matter how much detail you paint, it's not going to look real. You know, that feeling that something is literally there and sitting in front of you, that is something that I aim for. And I've found that the best way that I can get that is just with colour. Just with colour. Control of the colour. It's not the detail. It's nice to add a bit of detail, and sometimes I think I just add it because it's fun. But it's really about getting the broad general colours about right. Evelyn, you want a shelf like this? I know it's perfect, isn't it? Look, I don't know if you saw the beginning, so I'll switch back to the other camera just for a second. Let's see if that worked. Yeah, it did. So you can see it now. It's a cabinet, and I've had this for maybe 20 years or maybe more. And it was a friend of mine when I used to live in Nottingham, who used to make these. And I've lost the door. Yeah, it's like a little cabinet that I think we bought it off him, I can't remember. He never finished painting it properly, so it's only just been primed. And the door's gone, the hinges have gone. And I just found it again the other day, and I've done... How many paintings have I done with it now? I think this is the third, and I'm pretty sure it won't be the last one. I'm going to do a bunch more like this. I absolutely love it. Hopefully we've just successfully flicked back to the painting now. So there you go. I mean, a lot of it depends where you are. A lot of the stuff that I paint, I find in antique shops, and I'm lucky because of the area that I live in the countryside here in the Cotswolds. The antiques that you find in the antique shops, they have a really, I don't know how to describe it, they have a really nice feel to them. There's a lot of kind of old rural stuff hanging around. And I just love it for painting, you know. I'm just looking at this and I'm trying to decide if I've got there or not. I think it's something like what I was looking for. So hard to decide. I don't even know if the changes that I'm making will come across on the camera because they're pretty subtle. But hopefully they do. There was something else that was bothering me about this area of the apple when I was looking at it this morning as well, and I thought I've got to change that. I can't remember what it was now. I think it's the chroma down this bit here. Let's see if I can get a bit more chroma down there. So sometimes, I mean, I just know that I want a lower value and as much chroma as I can there. I know it's an orangey red. So I've got quinacridone rose and burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is, at that value range, is a pretty good chroma. By chroma, I mean it was looking a bit too dull. Shadows actually have. There's a little shadow on this side of the apple, which is made by this leaf. The edge is too harsh as well. Shadows often have a lot more chroma than people think. And it's really hard to get. It's really hard to get the chroma high enough at the low values. So it can be hard. So a lot of this, you can see the little kind of, I've got, my Munsell chips are giving me kind of anchor points, if you like, and the little modulations, like I'm mixing something which is between this and this, between that and that, so that I can handle this edge a bit better. I do those on the fly. I mean, there's no way that I would sit and premix every single colour. I think people think that that's what you do sometimes with premixing with Munsell, and that's not really how it works. You know, well, I should say it's not how I use it. I make sure I'm in the right area so I don't make any big, daft colour mistakes. And then for the bits of modulation in between colours, I'll do it on the fly. Now this bit here, the value is too high there, it just doesn't look right. I want to bring that down. So I've already got something which is close here. So I've just brought in a little touch of raw umber because I know that's a low value, low chroma yellow, and I can modulate that colour down with that. Let's get a little bit of that balsam in there. Smooth it out. Because the problem at the moment is this bit of the apple here, the value is the same as this bit and the chroma is the same, which makes it look like it's got as much light falling on it as this bit, and it's destroying the form. It doesn't have as much light down here. Plainly it doesn't have as much as the underside of the apple. So I've got to drop the value and the chroma there, and that again will help the form. And this is why, you know, it's a funny thing when people say that painting realism is just copying what you see. I mean, to an extent it is, but if that's all you do, you'll struggle because you have to think about it as well, a lot, you know, about what's happening and how you can manipulate the colour to describe the form. You don't always paint exactly what's there. I don't think. At least I don't, anyway. Sometimes you change it for compositional reasons, and sometimes you change it to try and create an effect, to make an effect more strong. Like sometimes I'll punch up the chroma a little bit in the lights, because at the end of the day, you know, what we've got here is a two-dimensional surface, and we're trying to create an illusion, you know. And it's tricky because I can't match the full range of values that I see there, from the very darkest parts of the shadows in the leaves to the very lightest parts over here. My value range is narrower than what I see there. I know not everyone believes this is true, but you know, trust me, I've checked with my muscle chips. Oh, I really messed that up. Oh yeah, horrible. I need to cut back into that. Come on. All right, I think that's looking better. I think that by knocking this back, this area, that this bit is starting to pop forward more now. Yes, that's the feeling I want there. Good morning, Tammy. It's really nice to see you. Sorry, I'm a little bit slow because I'm using my laptop as my palette camera today, so it's difficult for me to see the screen. But thanks for joining. Good to see you. Oh, Med, interesting comment. Did we have to deal with colours in the same way as light and shadow to describe the form? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, but let me just explain quickly how I approach colour. And it's it's by thinking about colour and light together, and understanding how colour changes across a form. So the highest chroma parts will usually be the lightest parts, except for the very lightest part where you have reflected light, like this little spot here where the chroma is very low, obviously. But across most of the form, the highest chroma will generally be around here. And then we go over into the shadow area and the value drops. Value is dark to light. Chroma is the intensity of the colour from grey to full colour. As you go over into the shadow area, there's less light, so the value drops. Value dropping is basically just means less light. And the chroma also drops. But you still want to be able to get as much chroma as you possibly can into your shadows if it's a high chroma object like this. Because there are pretty severe chroma limitations at low value in paint. So the value drops, and down here, this is what they call the occlusion shadow. There's no light at all, so there's a bit there which is the lowest value you can possibly get. I wanted some chroma, so I've used burnt umber mostly, but ivory black would give me an extra half a step on the Munsell scale of value lower. So in broad general terms, in the light is higher chroma and lighter value, and in the shadow is lower chroma and lower value. But because our paints are very restricted in chroma as we move down the value scale, as they get darker, they get lower chroma, less intense. It can be difficult to replicate the shadows that we see. Hopefully that kind of explained it. I mean, I think it's really important when you're painting a form like this to be really clear, firstly, in just the most broad, simple terms, and the difference between your light and your shadow. Make that really clear. In a lot of paintings that don't really work, there's not a very clear delineation between the shadow and the light. They kind of get confused. So when I started painting this, I think I did a little studio drop-in session when I was right at the beginning, and at first I painted this strip down here, and then I painted the shadow next to it. So I had a really clear delineation, like here, light, shadow. That's the light, that's the shadow, and you can still see it on here. And then obviously the hue changes as it moves around here. But you need to keep a really clear delineation between the shadow and the light. Then within the shadow, you've got your main shadow area, and you'll have some reflected light. Like this light here is low chroma and it's high value because it's light that's coming in here, bouncing there, and it's bouncing back on here, and it really shows the form. but it drops the chroma because it's white. It's white light, so it drops the chroma there. There's no chroma to this light as it comes back and hits the apple. It's been modulated, whereas the lights that's coming this way, I've been painting, it's overcast this week, so it's, I'm going to use that word, but I guess it's all right to use it about light. It's a slightly warmer light. It's not reflected straight off the sky. So the direct light that's coming here is warmer, and the light that's bouncing back off here is cooler. You know, so I've got to reflect that in my paint, and the way that I've done that, funnily enough, is I've used titanium white with my yellow mix to bring up the value, and I've dropped, and that has dropped the chroma. And a lot of the time, this is another thing about warm and cool that kind of bothers me, is a lot of the time people will say, well, I need to cool down the chroma of this orange, so I'm going to use a blue. And a lot of the time, what you really want to do to make something look cooler is just drop the chroma. You know, if it's something on the yellow, orange, red side of the hue scale, just drop the chroma, and next to a higher chroma color, it will look a lot cooler. It's not always about the hue. This edge is really bothering me here. It's really scrappy, and it's just not well painted at all, which means I'm going to have to paint, to get a better edge here, I'm going to have to paint some of the background and some of the apple, all of this bit of the apple there. I'm just not happy with it. Some of the stuff that I'm doing today, I mean, if I do a webinar, I'll have a demonstration ready, and it'll make more sense, and it's more focused, if you like. Today, it's I keep these sessions, I try to keep them informal, which means I'm more likely to do them because I don't spend a lot of time setting them up, you know, and there's less pressure for me. That's not going to do it. I'm going to use some titanium. I want to quickly mix up some of this background colour here. I wasn't planning to do any background today, but I'm going to need to do some, so excuse me, I'm just going to get in front of the camera a second. I can't avoid it because I need to get my neutrals out, which also allows me to show you something else quickly. By the way, I always order my paints in values from light to dark. The only reason for me doing that is it helps me think about things as I'm going. These are all Munsell neutrals tubed, value 6. Five, which I happen to know is about the same value as these, as yellow ochre and my permanent orange. 3. About the same value as my quinacridone rose. Where's 1? 1. Raw umber, burnt umber. Similar value. These can be a useful way to drop chroma as well, but you have to be careful because especially on the colours around the orange, yellow and red side of the hue wheel, it will tend to swing the hue quite markedly as well. So what I've got in here is I've already mixed raw umber and white. I used a bit of both, no particular reason for it, to roughly the value I want, and then I wanted to drop the chroma further, and because it's such a low chroma colour anyway, any hue shift is going to be so minor, you won't see it. Might be too light. Probably too light. A bit too light. I've done a lot of checking on this background value before against what I can see there. What I want here is, I just want a little bit of it on there so that I can sort out this edge, because it's just bothering me. I mean, the thing is, I do a lot of stuff which, you know, from I guess, how could I describe it? From a business point of view, they don't make much sense. You know, because I spend too long on my paintings, given how much I sell them for. But I kind of don't care, because what would be the point in doing this if I wasn't doing stuff that I'm happy with? Some people can paint fast, way faster than me. Just to say, I'm doing this little bit here. I can't use one colour and stroke right across there. It's going to look horrible if I do. So I've got that main colour, this light colour that I mixed earlier on, and I'm dropping the chroma slightly, but I'm using the neutral to do it, and this is going to make it look cooler. There, I used that word again. And the reason I'm doing it is because I want this edge. That's too light. Is it too light? It's too light. Bring some more of a darker neutral in. Not enough paint. That's nice. So it's showing, the drop in chroma is showing the fact that the light is reflected from here. And the thing is, even if you don't intellectually understand this stuff, when you're looking at a picture, it makes all the difference in making the form look believable, you know? Hello, Louise. Thanks for saying hi. Nice to see you. Claudia's here too. Hello, Claudia. And Erica. Hello, Erica. For anyone who's joined late, I guess the video will stay on Facebook, so you can see the bit at the beginning when I was talking about what I'm doing today. But I'm sorting out this painting because I thought it was finished and I was going to put it up for auction yesterday, and I looked at it and I just couldn't do it because I just wasn't happy enough with the painting. And maybe I should have just done it. I mean, you know, maybe I should have just done it. I should have just gone ahead and moved on to another painting. But you've got to follow your heart on these things, don't you? Surely, you know. And what didn't feel right putting this thing out into the world as it was. I freely admit that I'm of an obsessive nature, and I should probably try and curb those tendencies sometimes. But I've got to do what I think is right. And also, my confidence is very low today. I don't know why, and that might be part of it too. Who knows the influences that go into making a painting? What it is, you know. I guess it's one of the wonderful things about painting is that it's a reflection of everything that's going on in your life as you do it. Little things show up in it that you may not be obvious. I think this is too dark. It's too dark, right? What do you think? This bit is too dark, right? And this shadow is too big. Let's bring that value up there. Now, I don't want it to be too orange and too high chroma either. So I'm going to go, you can see generally what I've got on my palette here. I'm going from the yellows over to the reds. But I want it slightly lighter than what's there, but I don't want this. I don't want the yellow because I'm in the red part of the apple, so I'm going to bring the value up slightly of my reddish bit with flake. It just got too dark there, I think. And this leaf is lying so close against the apple there that it should be a really thin shadow, not a big thing like that. I think that's better. Yeah, Claudia, I'm going to show you actually, just quickly, let me show you what I've done. For anyone who's joined later as well, you can see what my setup is today. Normal camera that I have, it's been bothering me that I can't show you the painting and the palette at the same time. So at some point I'm going to get another camera and try and figure out a way to use the text so I can do it. But what I've done for today is I got my laptop on an easel, And I can have both a laptop and the camera both streaming at the same time. It's so cool. It means that I'm festooned with wires in here, and it's really tricky. But you know, it makes for a much more useful stream. And I'm trying to fix stuff that I just wasn't happy with on this painting. And it's funny you should say you like the leaves, because from a distance I think they work really nice. But close up I just I don't know, I couldn't let them go. They weren't working for me. And also I want to do some stuff with the design, you know. I mean, there's a flow to it here, and I want to bring that out a little bit more. And this is one of the things that has come from my practice with Arthur Wesley Doe. I think I'm probably just going to leave this stream running, you know, and I'm just going to chat while I paint. But Arthur Wesley Doe, a book called Composition, and I did a lot of drawing practice where you line things up within the composition, even though they don't actually line up in real life. And I think it must, some kind of innate sense of pattern and order that we have within us must respond to that, you know. And I'm going to try and bring some of that in, because it's a little bit, I just think I can make a nicer design here than I have. I'm happy with this edge now. That was a horrible edge. I don't know how closely you could see it, but it was a really horrible edge. And it just looked like bad painting, and now it looks much better. I'm just going to stand back a bit and have a good look. Looks all right. So listen, you can all help me out. You can help me out here, right? Am I fiddling endlessly, or is what I'm doing making a difference? What do you think? I mean, seriously, you know, do you think the painting is done? And I can't let it go, and I'm just fiddling? What do you reckon? Renee, hello. What do you think? I mean, you know, like I say, I've got to go with what I think, and I think the painting just needed more work. But I'd be curious to see what everyone else thinks. I mean, of course, you can't, although I can get fairly close with the camera, you can't see it quite as clearly as I can, obviously. It's across the internet and it's streaming, which means some detail is lost. But as you can see, I've already signed it here yesterday, thought it was finished, got up today and thought, that's awful, I can't leave that. I can't leave that like that. I don't know. Who knows? I'm gonna do some stuff on the leaves. I think partly what I was doing there was just sort of getting warmed up, really. This is a little bit of background, so that's going to be useful probably, so I'll keep that. But I've used too much of my palette, I need to bring it back into control. Let's squidge everything up a little bit more. I don't want to lose any of these colours, because little touches of them might be useful, but I'm going to squidge them up really quickly. So I've got some room to mix some leaf colours, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by the same way as I did with the apple that I was just doing there. I mixed a kind of an anchor colour, a couple of anchor colours first that I knew would put me in the right place, and then I used those as a starting point to get the colours that I wanted. You can get out of the way, go over there. So this will become my background strip area of my palette. To get a shot of this, and then I've made some room for some green. The light's really dropping now. Is the video looking really dark? Is it going really dark? Tell me if it is, and I'll raise the exposure of the camera. It's not finished until it's sold. John, really good point. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's difficult. A bit dark, Renee. Okay, let's see if I can. I've got to do this weird contortion manoeuvre to be able to see the screen and change the camera at the same time. It's going to jiggle about a bit, I'm afraid. Yeah, it is looking a bit dark, isn't it? Oh, wrong way, sorry. Yeah, the light's really dropped. There we go. Is that a bit better? That should be better. Good point, Tammy. An ability to listen to what the painting says it needs, yeah. Although I think perhaps I would maybe, I don't know. The thing is, I'm not actually convinced if the painting does need it or if it's just coming from me and it's just because, I don't know. I have this, did another bit of, it's honesty time again today. I'm having one of those honest days today where I probably let a bit more out of the bag maybe than is advisable, but I have this constant struggle between, and I think probably all painters, realist painters do. It's easy if you're abstract, right? You can just tosh them out. No, I didn't really say that. Realist painters, this struggle between, I mean, what we do is by its nature obsessive, and it requires a huge amount of focus and work. But at the same time, you've got to get paid for what you do, or your kids won't eat, you know. And I have this kind of tension always between, I could happily work on a little painting like this forever, I think. But at the same time, you know, I need to produce enough work. My living isn't completely made by selling paintings, but it contributes a fair amount to it. I'm dropping the chroma of this green. I'm aiming for leaf colours, which I know are around here, so I'm going for that one to start with. Needs to be more yellow and drop the chroma. Value is about right. Yellow ochre will do that really nicely for me. Gone way too far there. And never mind. I'm having trouble finishing a thought today, as you probably noticed. But you kind of, you need to produce work, but you need to, I mean, you know, I may as well be working in an office really if I just churn out product. Do you know what I mean? I've gone way too yellow with that, but I know that some bits of it are quite yellow, so I'm going to leave that colour, I'm going to keep it. But let's try again. That wasn't 6 I put out there at all, that's the value 9 easily. I don't know what I was talking about. We're talking about poor, value 6. I feel bad for you all today because I know I'm not very together today. I probably shouldn't come on at all. Chroma is too high. Hue is too yellow. Not thinking straight. Right, this is sap green. Probably just looks black on the camera, but it's sap green. Look what happened when I bring the value up with titanium white. Blue-green, right? What I want to do is I want to swing this hue. I don't want to change the value much because the value is about right, look. Alright, it's too light. It's a bit too light, but it's not far off. But I want to swing the hue round a little bit towards blue-green. So I'm going to bring this up to the same value and just mix a little bit of it in. Now, when I was doing the workshop in Belfast, the colour workshop, Julie said, who's has set up and runs the Belfast Academy of Realist Art. She's a brilliant teacher, I think. And she was saying to me that she calls it what I call bracketing. She calls value to value. So if you're going to change a colour, modulate a colour, unless it's the value you want to change, if you're changing the chroma or the hue, then the colour, any colour that you mix into it, you want to bring it up to the same value so that you don't change the value. So this is going to drop the chroma and it's going to swing the hue. and it's going to bring me closer to this. All I'm after doing is mixing really kind of a reference. I've gone maybe a bit too blue, so I can bring some of that back in. And also the chroma is too high, it's really obvious to me now. I don't know if you can see that there because the value is pretty much bang on, but I want to drop that chroma. And in greens and blues, a Munsell neutral is generally a really good way to do that. And it will also, as I was saying before, a chroma drop is often what people mean when they say the colour is cooler. And that's another reason where I think thinking about colour in terms of warm and cool, I pretty much nailed it. In terms of warm and cool can be difficult, it can be misleading. Just, I think it's, maybe sometimes can be useful, but I think it's just something to be wary of. I'm going to keep these little ingredient colours there, but I know I've got something that's really close to this. I want something close to this. I just realised my tummy's rumbling because it's actually lunchtime and I've got a mic attached to me, so you might be able to hear that. This is a slightly darker colour, lower value. Value's about right. Chroma way too high, and it's too blue-green, so I want to swing it to yellow, so I'm going to bring, and I want to drop the chroma, so I'm going to bring raw umber up to the right value with white. More of it than that isn't really enough to be mixing with. You know, it's funny, when I'm on a live stream I kind of feel the pressure to entertain, but at the same time sometimes I just want to paint. By entertain I mean to be talking. Mix between them and I should be able to get pretty close to that colour there. Pretty much nailed it, but the chroma dropped a little bit, but I can easily sort that out because the value is roughly the same as yellow ochre. Add a bit of chroma. Keep that back, just in case. Eat the apple. Hi Dave, good to see you. Oh, you don't mind me just sitting and painting and chuntering on and not being very focused and organised today? Is that right? Is that what I'm getting? That's nice if it's true, because it's probably what's going to happen anyway. Shadow colours of those leaves are low value, quite yellow in places. That's probably going to be too strong chroma-wise. And too blue. But we'll see. Can modulate that colour as I go. So I've got a really rough, get some more yellow in. rough a really rough string, so I've got a more, in the lights I've got a more bluish green and a more yellowish green. I've got very low chroma green a little bit further down in value, and then I've got right down in the darks, which I can do, a lot of that I can do just by on the fly. It's alright still. This is my, you can't really see it, but I've got a little bit of medium on there. The thing is with the leaves, I haven't decided what to do with them really yet. I know I'm not happy with the way this one has been painted. Look, the edge is all hairy and rubbish and just kind of toshed in. It's not controlled. These bits of paint are just blotches. I like that. I like the little stalk there. That's come out all right. But the rest of it, I'm just... I don't think it's very well painted, you know. Thankfully, I've got a bit of background. I've completely... Look at this. I've completely dirtied up my flake white, so I'm going to change that. I guess I have days. Some days I'm more organised on my palette, and some days I'm less organised. I don't know how this looks to you, but this is probably one of my less organised days. Generally speaking, the more organised I am, the better the paintings come out. Frankly. Ooh, look at this. The cap broke. That's never happened to me before. This is Rublev Flake White. The cap's... if you can see that. Can you see that? The top of the cap's kind of broke. How strange. Just as well I've almost run out. Yeah, Claudia, I know what you mean. I kind of like the looseness too, but I want it to be a controlled looseness. I don't want it to be wrong. Do you know what I mean? I want it. If there's looseness in the painting, I want it to be there because I decided that it should be there, not because I was being lazy or unfocused in my painting. Yesterday I wasn't very focused, and I found my hand doing stuff kind of by itself. You know, just like putting paint down and it's hard to describe, but I can tell when I'm connected and when I'm not. Today I'm much more connected, I think, because when I looked at the painting this morning and I thought, you know what, that's not finished, I've got to sort it out. It helped me kind of bring in a bit more focus, perhaps partly because I've got an audience. It makes me raise my game a bit. Why am I struggling? But yesterday, a lot of the looseness of the leaves is just because it's not deliberate, if you know what I mean. It's not describing shape, it's just bad painting. Some of it is come out all right. But this, I kind of feel like this leaf here is, I don't know how sharp I'm going to keep this edge here, but it's sort of an important part of the painting, this leaf here. You see, I've got, one of the things I love about this composition is I've got a dark leaf here against the light background, and I've got a light leaf here against the dark background, and I've massively overstated how soon this background turns dark here in order to have that leaf stand out more. And I just want these, leaves, I think they're important, you know. And it's like brush strokes, they almost have a kind of, this is, I don't know what I'm saying. They're almost like they have a personality, you know. They can describe something more than just the object that you're painting. I guess I'm talking about expression, right? But not in terms of, I mean, I'm not talking about like de Kooning or anything like that, you know. You know what I mean? sometimes I make nice brush strokes and sometimes I don't. And I'm not happy when the brush stroke I've made isn't nice. Right, some green. Here's a funny thing, right? A lot of people have emailed me over the years saying about, every now and again I send out an email, I say, what do you find hard about colour? Because I want to know, people have the same struggles I do and what I can put out that's going to be useful. And a lot of people say mixing greens. And you know why I think it is? I think it's because most of the greens that we have on our palette come out of our tubes are too far towards blue in hue when you put them against the greens that we see in nature. And you need to swing the hues right round towards yellow. Simple as that, honestly, simple as that. Well, and drop the chroma. This I can see, everything I've got on here, the value is nice, but the hue is too blue. There's a beautiful bit of, just round here, there's a really beautiful bit of leaf where the leaf curls slightly and there's slightly more light, and I want to get that in. Watch me screw this leaf up. I want to get that in if I can. It's lighter. It's subtle, it's not really obvious, but it's definitely there. And it just shows you that this bit of leaf here is beginning to curl around, and it actually gets so light there that it becomes the same value as the background. Now I've overstated the lightness of the background there. I think I might have to bring it down, but just a little. The chroma's dropping. It's a tiny bit of leaf, just this corner. But it's so beautiful. It's so subtle. I've got to decide what to do with that background. I'm going to leave it. For now. I was going to lighten it, but I don't think I'm going to. Bad edge. I don't even know if I'm going to finish this painting today, I can see so much that I would like to do on it now. You see this edge down here? It just kind of comes down and it's undefined. And actually, it changes there, and the direction of the leaf changes. And if I can bring in there's a really subtle change to the value there, where a bit of the leaf turns more towards the light. And if I can reflect that in the direction of the edge there, and in the painting of the leaf, and in the values of the leaf there, it's going to create a little bit of form, and that's. Those little bits, that's where it's kind of where it's where it happens. I'm overstating it, I think. I can always knock it back. Just a little bit. Too much chroma and it was too blue. That was the right colour. Now the leaf is starting to make sense. Although it's not subtle enough. But the edge is, I don't know, can you see the edge is different now? To me, that's different. To me, the whole feel of it is different now. You know, it was a bit clumsily painted, and the hues were wandering. They'd gone a bit too blue. I wasn't careful enough about the mix, and I wasn't careful enough about the edges, and it just wasn't. I like it much more now. Rene says happy accidents. I know this is. What about happy accidents? It's a good question. I mean, I know people talk about it a lot. I've got to give you my take on it. I've got to be honest with you here, and this is probably going to be an unpopular thing to say, but I don't believe in happy accidents. I want to. Everything that's on my painting, I want to be there because I decided that it was going to be there. That I made a decision that it would be there. If I ever do something without engaging my brain, I find almost, I would say, without exception, it doesn't come out very well, and I have to go back and do it again later. I suppose it depends. I think it's a part. It comes from modern art, that idea about happy accidents, about the whole thing about letting go of your conscious mind and allowing feeling and to take over. And I have to be honest. It's a position I have trouble with because I don't see it happen in the work that I do. When I have stuff happen accidentally in my paintings, and of course I do, it never seems to make it better. I don't get the happy accident thing. I want everything in my painting to be a result of decisions that I've made. I do, however, think that you can overplay the rationality side of things, and that we're complicated, and our decision-making process is rarely completely, if ever, completely rational. All kinds of stuff comes into it. Certainly, rational decisions are very much affected by our emotions. There's Alexander Damasio is the guy to read on this. There's a really good book called The Feeling of What Happens. And who's the other guy? Boris Lakoff. Both of them are really interesting to read on this, on the thing about rationality, because there's a book called Descartes' Error, which I think is by, Descartes, I think, therefore I am, which it's like, that book is by Alexander Damasio, and he says it's more like, to be honest, it's more like I feel, therefore I am, and thinking is feeling, and that this dichotomy that we have in Western societies between thinking and feeling is actually, is at the very least overstated and probably entirely wrong. This is like, it's psychology basically. And I think a lot of the decisions that we make are guided by, feelings, emotions, our personal histories, but that doesn't mean to say that therefore that it's a good idea to kind of let go and to remove yourself from the decision-making process entirely. I think that's, for me at least, it's not a way I like to approach my painting, because when I do that, I almost invariably paint badly. And I have tried, obviously. I used to paint abstract, I used to do abstract paintings a long time ago, great big bloody horrible ugly things. I have tried it. Glad to say the truth won out eventually. Diane's poll, can you shift the palette camera so we can see the reference? Oh right, can I do that? I've no idea. I'll see if I can do it just for a minute. Might bring down the internet, doing this. Could be terrible. Let's see if it's possible. Yeah. Oh look, is it better there? I don't know where to put it. Now you can't see some of the painting. It's kind of tricky. I'm going to have to put it back again, but you can hopefully see, like, I'll try and shift it up a bit. That's funny. It's kind of awkward because there's not really a good place to put it. You can see a little bit more of it now. But also bear in mind that the camera, this camera, which is on the painting, is not at the same angle. It has a slightly different viewpoint of the painting than I do. I'm so pleased I went back to that leaf. It's not tightly painted now. Oops, sorry, just bumped into the camera. It's not, I wouldn't say it's tightly painted now. It just works much better in the painting. It works much better, I think, now. There's an interesting bit about it, though. I'm gonna wrap up soon because I'm starting to fire up, and I want to just get into the painting. You know, on the actual leaf, there's this corner kind of goes back that way, and I think I can use that because I want to. Oh, totally the wrong value. Ow. I want to bring this movement out. So I'll tell you. I don't know. Do you want me to keep going? Do you want me to leave the cameras on or not? I mean, feel free to leave. Maybe I'll leave them on, but the video is going to be like an hour, 2 hours long or something. In the middle at the bottom, you reckon? I can try it. See, wherever I put it, some painting is missing, or some of the... I've got to put it back there. It's bothering me down there. I don't know why. Look, I'll jiggle it up into the corner a bit more. How's that? I guess I'll try and find a way of in future doing it better. Anyway, what was I saying? There's a slight little thing there, and you know, I can really make that line up with the top end of this, the top bit of this here, and then I can, and so I've mixed up some more values. Let's get a little value string going for the background here. Quick as we can. I can bring up this arc, right, from here, through there, down this leaf, and I can bring it down, and if I change the position of where this little really badly pointed bit here, where the leaf curls back, if I bring that in, I can bring this right out, and I think that'll look really nice. It's not, I suppose you could say it's not accurate, but what can I tell you? I do that kind of thing quite a lot. This flake white, right? I really like it, but and it can't be helped. I'm not complaining or anything. It separates out quite a bit in the tube, and a lot of the oil came out at the top of the tube, and now I'm down the bottom. It starts to set up quite quickly on the palette. It becomes more difficult to use. This is going to be tough now. If I'd have seen that I wanted to do that earlier in the painting, I might have to repaint the background, but I don't want to because it's semi-translucent and it shows a little bit of the texture of the underpainting, which I want to keep. These leaves here, I'm going to leave that, and I might do something with that, but I'm going to leave that because I don't mind it. But something's going wrong. I don't want to lose the translucency of the background. Again, I don't know if that comes out on the camera, but it gives it a kind of a depth. In the light it doesn't matter, it's thick in the light. But as I go over to the shadow, I've got none left, I've got no medium left. Well, the bit that I've got left has got paint in it and it's drying out. What I used for that background is almost entirely raw umber, glazed. That's dry enough to paint on, but I don't want to put too much on there. A tiny, tiny little smear. Oh, almost knocked the painting off. What's the value there? Too dark. So that's going to be wrong, but I'll get the edge. So I'm trying to bring that out, that kind of. This line, I want these bits to connect up. I'm going to make that darker than it is. And then later I'm going to change that down there so it kind of flows down. But at the moment I've messed up the background, so I need to. So I just put a tiny little bit of that kind of de balsam medium on there to give me something to paint into. And funnily enough, actually, yeah, talking about happy accidents, there has ended up with it's ended up with a slightly darker bit of background there against the leaf, and I think I'm going to leave it because I think it kind of makes it stand out a little bit. Just a little bit. Yeah, that's probably. Yeah, you're probably right, Dave. If I set this up differently I set up the main camera with the painting pretty much in the middle vertically, but next time I'll try and do it differently. This is actually the first time I've ever done this, to have two cameras running at once on the stream. Listen, this video is going to be so long. I think I'm probably going to cut it here. Also, I don't know if you can hear it, but my tummy's rumbling. I need to put some food in it, or I'm going to lose my concentration before too long. But I hope it was a very informal session today. I wanted to try this setup out, and I wanted to go through, I suppose, to explain a little bit about what I was doing at the last stages of this painting, why I decided to pick it up again and do some more work on it, even though I thought it was finished yesterday. So I think I'm going to leave it here for now. So everybody be nice to each other. And I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.